Jacob Gariagliano, and today I'll be informing you about surrealism. Now, René Magritte said that the surreal is just reality that is not dissipated from the mystery. Now, today I'll be informing you about surrealism and its brief history, some of the elements of the craft, and some notable artists of the craft. Now, surrealism sprouted out in the 1920s, in which it actually started out as a literary form, in which it focused on the subconscious mind and used a lot of Freudian methods, such as free association, to sort of create their own stories, in which they used automatic writing to achieve this. Now, they were always hesitant to get into art, because like all art, it's hard to exactly express themselves, and especially in this way of trying to express this dreamlike nature of the subconscious. But of course, eventually, they got into it and became the more popular of the two. Now, in 1929, there was actually a schism between the two branches of literary and painting. Now, the literary side was actually based off its founder, Andre Breton, and then there was the painting of George Battaglia. Now, Breton and George never got along. Breton, even though he admitted that his first manifesto of surrealism was a bit Marxist in some places, he didn't like how Battaglia's, not only his art was too gory in some factors, but also how he mixed the Freudian Marxism, causing the split. Now, it really started to decline in the 1930s for obvious reasons of fascism and Francoism rising and forcing many to flee to the U.S., where it found new life. And actually, in 1940, in New Mexico, during the Surrealist Convention, the two branches sort of made peace and reunited in some fashion. Now, Surrealism, as mentioned, focuses a lot on dreams, the dreamlike nature of not making sense, yet it makes sense in that facet. Like a great example is Salvador Dali's The Persistence of Memory. As you can see, melting clocks, the background of his home, his horse-like thing and the saddle melting with the clocks, and ants, which he always used to sort of create a primitive sexual arachnid desires. He was a very sexual-based man. And it's also, like all art, personal. Like Frida Kahlo's The Girl in Death's Mask. Now, she made this following her miscarriage. And you can see it just represents the pain she felt throughout her life and her relationship with death. Not only that, her cultural background of, Mexican heritage and the Day of the Dead. And also, like all art, in some fashions it's political. Like The Premonition of Civil War by Dali and Picasso's Majorocracy, which both were in reference to the Spanish Civil War that they both had to flee from. Now, some artists of note, as referenced Dali. Now, Dali was always a man who liked to make common objects in such great detail, but he mutated in its own way, in some fashion. Like the palm and pocket watch that everyone used, he mutated into his own way of expression. And he was also, as mentioned, a very sexual, desire-based man. He especially loved to use lobsters in that reference. Now, another one is Belgian artist René Magritte. He was more calm in his, like, comedy, horror, satire, that sort of thing. He also liked to represent the middle class in his art, such as one of his famous paintings, The Son of Man. Well, just man, but with an apple in front of his face, maybe represents the temptation of sin, the blind eye of it, who knows. So that's the great thing about art. It's subjective. I thank you for listening, and I hope this was helpful in informing you about surrealism and maybe spark an interest in surrealism in you. And remember, dreams are... References into Britannica, the Met Museum, Surrealist Anxiety About the War, Dictators, Refugees, and Monsters and Myth, Arts and Cultures at Google.com, Surrealism, the Split Movement, and Salvador Dali, The Persistence of Memory, the Museum of Modern Art.